Welcome back to my channel, Stay Hype, where I help you heighten your personal experience through my own experience on this earth. My name's Kristen, and I am so excited to be making this video today. You guys totally loved the top 10 most common shadow video that I posted a couple days ago, and I could tell in the comments that you wanted more clarity on how to actually integrate these shadows. I touched on it briefly in that video, but that video was more about acknowledging, like bringing up the shadows, teaching you what the shadows are. And so I want to focus this video on how to actually integrate and heal them. And I came up with the 5 A's. So we're gonna go through the 5 A's of integrating your shadow. So just for a recap, if you don't know what your shadow is, the shadow is a subconscious part of our psyche that we have shoved down, that we keep in the darkness because we've been conditioned by society, our parents, our family, to think that these parts of us are unlovable, undesirable, undeserving. And there's a lot of insecurities and a shame associated with these shadows, and that's why we don't want anybody to know about them. And so when we get triggered, we subconsciously start acting out of these shadows, and that's why some of you guys feel like you just get so dysregulated, or all of a sudden you have explosive anger, or you have deep guilt, or you feel like you have to control everything. That is your shadow self. And so what we need to do is integrate your shadows into you, because it is a part of you. So we got to bring your shadows to light so you can be your most authentic version. So let's go through it. If you haven't watched the top 10 most common shadows, I'm going to link it somewhere here, or I'll put the link of the video in the description. Make sure you watch that video first so you can identify what your shadows are, and then come back to this video and learn how to actually heal and integrate them. So let's get started. So the 5 A's of integrating your shadow. The first A is awareness. Awareness. You cannot integrate and heal what you are not aware of. And so this is why so many of you pre-spiritual awakening, you were just going through subconsciously in life. You were going through life asleep, and you were just acting out in these behaviors. And some of you were kind of like, well, this is just how I am. Or some of you would feel like something was up, but you didn't know exactly how to address it. You weren't fully aware of why you were behaving the way that you were behaving. You weren't aware of why you had explosive anger. You weren't aware of why you were so controlling in relationships. You weren't aware of why you always were seeking external validation and felt super codependent in relationships. You weren't aware of why you were so avoidant when it came to speaking your truth. So the awareness that you are carrying these shadows is the number one way that we have to integrate it. Because again, you cannot integrate what you are not aware of. So if 9 times out of 10, if you're watching this video, you do have some awareness, or this video wouldn't have appealed to you. So number 1, awareness. We got to be aware of our shadows. The second A is acknowledgement. You actually have to acknowledge that these shadows are present. So the duality comes up. You have to acknowledge that there's a part of you that you feel insecure about. You have to acknowledge that there's a part of you that you feel is unlovable. You have to actually acknowledge the feelings that come with these shadows, right? Because the acknowledgement is making it real. Right? First, we have the awareness. Okay, I'm aware of something. But then when we acknowledge, I do have some anger issues. I do have some control issues. I am very codependent. I am very insecure. I do seek external validation. Yeah, I do project my feelings quite often. Yep, I am very avoidant when it comes to having difficult conversations. We have to acknowledge this part of ourselves in order to heal it. We cannot integrate something that we don't acknowledge is real, because sometimes we may have the awareness, and there's a lot of people on this planet that are aware of their behaviors, but they don't want to really acknowledge it out loud. They just keep it suppressed in, because if they talk about it with someone, or if they talk about it out loud, then it makes it real, and then here come the shame and the guilt and all these other parts that we don't want to feel. So a lot of people are aware of it, but may not actually acknowledge it. So we have to acknowledge that these shadows really do exist and start identifying the shadows. So acknowledgement. The third A is acceptance. So you must be willing to accept the experiences and conditioning that led you to this unconsciously to create these shadows in the first place. And this ties into a lot of inner child work. Okay, and so this is why inner child work and shadow work go hand in hand, because we have to start accepting that this was my childhood. We have to start accepting the sexual abuse, the verbal abuse, the physical abuse that we went through that led to us getting these shadows and creating these shadows in the first place. A lot of these shadows were created because we wanted love, because we thought that parts of us were not good enough. And so we created a totally different mask and persona to fit in with society, to feel like we were worthy of love. And so we have to start accepting the past. And that could be one of the most difficult parts out of this 5A process, because accepting it means that you're looking at the darkness. It means that you see your mom and dad in a different light, because you're accepting that the fact that you didn't just have a typical normal childhood, you had a very abusive, tumultuous childhood, and you're accepting the fact that you did not get your needs met, and that your mom and dad that you had on this pedestal, or your siblings or your partner or your best friends that you had on this pedestal, is not really deserving to be there. And I think that no one should be on a pedestal, because if you put anybody on a pedestal, you're affirming that you're beneath them. And why? We're equal. And so the acceptance part of this process can probably be the most painful, in my opinion, because this is where you have to kind of do the real work and accepting it and making peace with it, and the forgiveness. And this is where you have to allow the anger to come out in a healthy way. This is when you have to relinquish control. This is where you have to get honest about your insecurities and just accept, oh, the reason why I have these insecurities is because of XYZ. And the reason why I'm so angry is because of XYZ. So we have to accept these shadows and also start to pour love into the shadows. Acceptance is love, right? I accept you for who you are, and I still love you anyway. So we must start accepting our shadows, and I think that's a very, very important part of this process. So the next A, accountability. Accountability. This is a pretty painful part as well, but you must take accountability for how you've projected these shadows onto others, and apologize, make peace, and forgive yourself. This one is huge as well. I guess these are all very important, but accountability. This one was really challenging for me, because I had no one in my life really taking accountability, particularly my father, which I feel I created a lot of shadows from him. He projected a lot of his shadows onto me, and I picked them up. And so it was really painful for me to hold myself accountable for the ways that I subconsciously, unconsciously hurt people, because no one apologized for me. So I have to sit in this shame and worry about people misunderstanding me or seeing me in a negative light. Even though I know who I am, even though I know now, because I have the awareness, I've acknowledged it, I have the acceptance, it still stings when you have to reach out to people and say, hey, I did gaslight you. I did project onto you, and that was not okay, and I'm sorry. It comes to the point where you will start attracting people in your life that are going to be more honest mirrors, and they're going to tell you, hey, this hurt me when you did this, or hey, I don't like when you do that, or hey, this is something that you're doing that I don't think you're aware of. And so when someone starts to make you aware of certain shadows, you do have to take accountability in order to free yourself, and know that even though you take accountability, doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It doesn't mean that you're not worthy of love. It doesn't mean that you're unlovable. It just means that you're breaking the cycle and doing what those before you could not or would not do, which is say, hey, I was wrong and I'm sorry. So many of you want apologies and you want that acknowledgement from your family members. So are you holding yourself accountable the same way that you want other people to hold themselves accountable? So accountability is huge. And then the final A, which is where a lot of people book coaching calls with me because they feel stuck, is taking action. Action. You have to take action on these shadows in order to actually integrate them. And this is probably the most important step, even though I said they're all really important, but you can have the awareness, you can acknowledge it, you can accept it, you can hold yourself accountable. But if you don't take action, you have to make emotional, mental, spiritual, and physical changes to yourself in order to fully integrate your shadow into the light. setting boundaries, speaking your truth, apologizing, active listening, having compassion, forgiving others and yourself, speaking kindly to self. So this means that you actually have to start embodying the person that you know you are and no longer continuing to be that person that you no longer resonate with. So if one of your shadows was avoidance and not speaking up when something hurts you, the action is to no longer avoid, and you have to have those uncomfortable conversations. If your shadow was projecting and projecting onto other people, you have to sit with it and say, this is what I'm feeling. You have to take accountability for your own feelings and not project it onto other people because that feeling's uncomfortable. You have to say, I'm the one that's angry and I'm sorry for projecting my anger onto you. It's not you that made me upset. This is a deeper wound and you don't deserve me projecting my anger onto you, and I'm sorry. You have to set boundaries. That guilt shadow that we talked about in the video, that comes up from crossing your own moral standards and ethics. And so in order for you to not feel that guilt for the ways that you didn't stand up for yourself, you got to start standing up for yourself. So you have to be vocal and say, hey, this is a boundary. This makes me feel disrespected. This doesn't make me feel safe. And because I'm embodying these shadows now, I can no longer carry this. I'm going to set these boundaries so that I don't feel guilty with myself for not speaking up. People don't know how to treat you all the time. You have to teach them. So that is the action that comes with that. Speaking kind to yourself. So many of us go into that inner critic because we have insecurities, the shadow of insecurity. And we go right to speaking negative. Oh, I was so stupid. Oh, I'm just not deserving of love. Of course they don't love me. I'm not beautiful, or I'm this. All that inner critic and insecurity, we have to start meeting ourselves with compassion and love now. And so this one's hard because like those thoughts are just so subconscious, but we have to become hyper aware. We're becoming hyper aware of how we speak to ourselves. And so in the moment when we recognize that we are being super critical, we have to say, nope, I love myself. Just because I made a mistake doesn't mean I'm a dumbass, doesn't mean that I'm stupid. It just means that I made a mistake and I need to learn from this mistake. And I still love myself even though I made a mistake. I'm still smart even though I made a mistake. I'm still worthy even though I made a mistake. So you have to start reprogramming and realizing that you're talking to that little inner child. You're talking to that sweet 5-year-old. You're talking to that inner teen, that 13-year-old, that 14-year-old that needed the compassion and the love. You have to give that to yourself. You do have to start apologizing, like we talked about the accountability. You have to start apologizing and knowing that you're not perfect, and that's okay. You're not going to always get it right, and that's okay. You're not always going to be in your light, and knowing that the duality, the darkness, these shadows will always live within you. And it's about making more of a conscious choice to be in the light. And being in the light is not being perfect, but it's about saying, okay, I had this moment of darkness. I projected, I gaslit you, and I'm sorry. I can own it. And I am sorry. This is not who I want to be. This is not who I am at my core. But I've had some experiences that, sometimes I go into these subconscious triggers. And I'm really sorry for treating you that way. And I'm going to do my best to make sure that I show up, in a healthier way. What else? Active listening. Active listening is another huge one. A lot of times our shadow, we're just waiting to speak our truth, but we're not really listening to how we impact people. So being more of an active listener is how you take action in these shadows, and really hearing people and not being so much on the defense. Okay, we're on the same team, especially in partnership, we're on the same team, and friendship. I'm just telling you these things out of a place of love, because at this point, a lot of us have lost the friends and we've distanced ourselves from people who we know are not coming at us from a place of love, right? That's why in the spiritual journey, the loss of friendships and people is huge. So now we are making the space to cultivate more healthy, safe relationships. So you should be surrounding yourself with people that make you feel safe at this point, right? And if you're not, here's your confirmation that you need to look deeper at the people that are around you and make sure that you are cultivating healthy relationships where you can be yourself, because this whole journey is about coming back to authentic self. So those are the 5 A's. Let me know if you want me to dive deeper, if there's other questions. Let me know in the comments specific questions, because I don't know, what exactly, you may be going through. So if you want to throw some questions, I will answer them back. I love talking in the comments. But the 5 A's, to recap: awareness, acknowledgement, acceptance, accountability, and action. When you can implement these 5 A's, then you can integrate your shadows and you will feel so free and so liberated, and overall just more love towards yourself, because these 5 A's equate to love. That's all it is. You are aware of it, you are accepting of it, you acknowledge it, you apologize, and you take action. Love is an action. And so with me personally, integrating my shadows have been one of the biggest transformations in my life. And I love who I am, even when I make mistakes. And I love my character. And I just pour love into myself, because I have two choices. I can beat myself down, or I can love myself. And so I'm choosing to love myself. And loving myself doesn't mean that I get away with everything and I don't have to hold myself accountable. As you know, that's one of the A's. Holding yourself accountable is self-love, because you are saying that I've made a mistake, but I'm still worthy of love. So all of it comes down to just loving these parts of you, so that the shadows no longer run you and rule you. You are integrating these shadows into the light, so that way when someone picks at something and someone hits a trigger, you don't completely lose yourself and just black out and crumble, or you don't hide from putting yourself out there, because you know if someone hits on something, if someone hits on a trigger, that's okay. Like, I already have integrated the shadow. It doesn't rule me anymore. I know I've had insecurities in the past. I know I used to be codependent, and I still love myself anyway. So there's nothing that you can say to me that I haven't said about myself, because I've already integrated these shadows and I am still worthy of love. You see how confident that is? You see, I made these mistakes and I'm still worthy of love. I wasn't always the best and I'm still worthy of love. I used to be super controlling, but I know why now, and I'm still worthy of love. You see? You don't got nothing on me, baby. You don't got nothing on me. All right? That's the confidence that I know that you are headed towards once you integrate these shadows. So I hope this helped. Leave me a comment. Please like and share this video with someone who you think needs to hear it. Make sure you recap and watch the 10 most common shadows if you haven't watched that video yet, so you can identify what they are. And I love you guys so much. I'm here for you, and I'll see you next time. Bye.